Hello, good morning. My name is Kamal Singh. I'm the Director of Microsoft Technologies from Clear People. This is a Comparix webcast for enterprise productivity, covering Office 365 in a broader sense, in terms of what does the proposition include, what does it mean for customers, what are the business challenges it's trying to solve, and actually from a journey perspective, how do you get there? As well as some licensing at the end of this seminar. So, as I mentioned, my name is Kamal Singh. I've been working for Clear People, who are a Tier 1 cloud services Microsoft partner for the last 7-8 months. And previous to that, I worked at Microsoft as a cloud productivity expert. And I help customers pretty much look at and evaluate Office 365, the public, hybrid, and private cloud. So I worked across that spectrum in terms of some of the workloads involved in that technology as well. So Clear People work very closely with Comparix. Comparix are a global cloud licensing solution provider, and actually they're one of the best cloud licensing experts in terms of helping you on that journey to define one. If I'm actually running traditional on-premise software or capabilities, how do I actually migrate to the cloud? Economically, technically, that's where Clear People come in. But how do you make that journey? And actually, what is the cost and the value back to the business when you do transition into more of a subscription licensing model? So there are lots of resources at Comparix. Your account manager, if you reach out to them, they can support you in terms of how to take that journey and actually what would that mean economically, but also when it comes to technically, we'll very closely work with Comparix in terms of drawing up them plans. So the other speaker that I've got on this conference call today, webinar, is James Callahan. So James will be here supporting me on the IM messages that I get from you during the time, but also at the end of the session for any technical questions that you may have. James is our business productivity practice lead, and has been working with SharePoint well over 10-12 years, and actually been in more recent years, over the last 5 years, has been focused across technologies like BPOS and Office 365, SharePoint Online, and brings with him a lot of knowledge and capability around helping organizations adopt to cloud services as well. And of course, online with us today, we also got your Comparix account managers as well. So if you do have any questions during that time, please do put that in the IM, and James or Comparix will help try and address them. But certainly we're going to allow for 10-15 minutes at the end of the session to really focus on more licensing, technical type of questions as well. So during the course of this webcast, everyone will be on mute until we get to the end of the thing. So just the structure, I'm going to go through a brief overview of Clear People, outline some business challenges, some trends that we're seeing in the industry, and then look at kind of what is Office 365. And Office 365, this particular webinar is focused more on the capabilities and some of the features that kind of form them capabilities as well. And I'll look at something, the productivity vision. So what is Microsoft's productivity vision? Microsoft's changed from a PC on every desktop to a devices and services company to today, a mobile first and a cloud first organization. So what does that actually mean for you when you're looking at things like Office 365? And there'll be short demos, so I'll take you through some of the workloads. What does Office 365 look like from an admin console perspective, from an Outlook experience, from a web app experience, and from a SharePoint experience as well. And we'll finally end with licensing, just a brief touch in terms of what are the licensing options available for you, and then finishing off with more of a Q&A. around that cloud journey. And obviously, I recognize that there may be some customers on the call today that are using some parts of Office 365, that are looking at Office 365, that are in the middle of a migration. So actually, there's a lot of things that will be relevant here. It's an evergreen service, so the cloud is forever changing, and I'll talk through some of the new features that have just been added recently. But actually, for existing customers, it tends to be a great way to understand that as well. And for net new customers, you get more of an idea where Office 365 can support you. So very briefly, in terms of what we do as Clear People, obviously we work very closely with Comparix as a systems integrator, but actually as a business, we have two key divisions, our digital marketing division and our technical consulting services division. This webinar is hosted by our technical hosting services division, but essentially, to the world, we're really known as a consult agency, which is really, if you look at an agency when they're actually trying to develop creative branding, UX, UI, they're very focused on the user. And actually, what's unique, certainly about Clear People, is that we are very focused on the user. We're very keen to see, well, actually, you're delivering this intranet solution, for example, across your enterprise, and actually what are the types of users and what are they interested in getting? How can we help them address their needs going forward? So we take a very persona-led kind of piece, but from a technology perspective, we're actually a multi-competency Microsoft Gold partner. We're one of the first UK cloud platform partners. So if you take technologies like Microsoft Azure and Office 365, it's predominantly been in incubation, which means that Microsoft don't launch it as a competency. And actually, we've been there from the outset in that journey, but it's only now that Microsoft have formalized a partner program for it. So we're one of the first kind of gold cloud competency partners. So we've got multiple competencies across, app development, collaboration, content management, Office 365, infrastructure as a service from an Azure perspective, platform as a service, and all the way down to storage in terms of backup, DR, recovery, all of them wonderful things as well. And our specialism is across a multitude of areas. Like I said, on the creative side, is very much around design, but actually on the technology side, it's kind of encompassing all of the typical workloads that are on-premise in a hybrid cloud, as well as the public cloud as well. And as a company, we serve a wide range of customers that are household names, but also customers that are kind of a mid-market or SMB side organizations that have a specific need. And organizations tend to come to us when they see us as a boutique when they have a specific challenge or a specific opportunity, specifically around that cloud journey as well. And talking about the cloud journey, so we have a cloud adoption framework. We absolutely, customers go through a certain path when actually looking at cloud services, and part of our cloud adoption framework, which is really there to support you on your journey. And today, for example, if you look at Envisage, which is really about kind of demonstrating, articulating, envisioning the capabilities that the cloud could offer. So what is the cloud essentially? And then we have Assess stage, which really focuses on the suitability of the cloud and what type of cloud is right for you. So it's almost your kind of high level cloud strategy in terms of, if I were to move to the cloud, what would that look like? What is the economic impact commercially in terms of licensing, in terms of services? How will I migrate? What impact will there be on my users? How do I manage that piece? So the Assess kind of does that. Design is actually when you come to us and say, well, actually, we absolutely want to move on Exchange Online. We actually get the benefits there, but actually to move there, we want your help in terms of designing that. Whether you implement it in-house or whether you get us to support you or act as a safety net, we're quite flexible in terms of how we work with you. But the design bit is really about auditing your current infrastructure, cloud mapping, doing some cost analysis, and very specific around what the cost is going to be. So very specific on the licensing cost, very specific on the ROI and TCO element as well. And of course, implementation, which is really about kind of how getting you to the cloud, and then of course transition and adoption. And actually, out of all of that stage, transition and adoption is really about making the most out of your investment. So, for example, if you've got users that are employees that are traveling a lot, and actually you want them help them reduce travel time and costs, we may use Link Online as a transition and adoption tool to make sure that we measure what impact that investment in that technology has had on them types of users. And of course, support. So I talked about being a safety net. So we have a technical account manager, a support desk that kind of work with you post that cloud journey. So that ongoing cloud evergreen journey, that's where we kind of hold your hand to as well. So specifically, when we talk about Office 365, we're really talking about the modern workplace, and whether you do it with hybrid capabilities or whether you do it kind of purely on premise, we are really talking about giving the right capabilities to your end users, to your business, to your departments, to your functions and divisions across your organization. And actually, this is about addressing the workplace dynamic, the fact that you've got a younger generation that's coming into that are used to using different devices, touch, instant messaging from a consumer social world into the workplace. So how do we arm them with the right tools to collaborate? And actually, how are we addressing that kind of the millennials, but all of the generation workforce that you're serving from an IT, from a business perspective as well. And of course, consumerization of IT's happened, so you've got this massive device explosion. That means that you've got stats like the worldwide global PC sales have gone down, but actually tablet sales have gone up, and that's showing that actually more and more consumers as well as business workers are using a different range of devices, from smartphones to tablet to hybrid devices, all the way down to a desktop PC as well. And actually, it's just recognizing how do you deal with that complexity of having these different devices, and what does that mean for me as an end user to consume them services. But also, there's a huge element around actually I'm traveling around, I'm working from anywhere, I need the right information. So when we talk about analytics, when we talk about BI and having access to the right information, the cloud has really opened up a massive avenue around how we can do that. And I'll talk about a little bit more in my demo around how that comes. But actually, all of that modern workplace dynamic, the changing role of IT presents a huge challenge for the business and IT, who are looking to really deliver these services around, well, if someone's left a laptop or a device at the back of a taxi, and actually it's got your customer's credit card details in it, the exposure to your business is huge. So actually, how do you manage that in terms of compliance? And whether you're on the cloud or hybrid or privately, do you have the right tools and the controls to be able to drive that? So I'll start to address some of them areas as well. So, these are generally some stats that I'll go through, which is really around the future of corporate IT. 75% allow personal mobile devices for business use. Only 24% of organizations have a bring your own device policy in place. And actually, most often organizations are either doing choose your own device or actually dictating their own, the device that are available. All of them strategies are great, and the cloud presents an opportunity for all of those organizations. However, if you are doing bring your own device, that separation of your your work-life blend, your personal data versus your corporate data, needs to be made, and that confidence needs to be given to the organization around compliance and policy as well. And actually 49% of work requires a network of collaboration. So there's a contributory factor around working together within the organization. And actually, some reports, and this is not true with all organisations, of course, but certain industries it's more true than others. But 80% of employees are ineffective at collaborating, and that's maybe more so down to potentially the tools, the governance of them tools, the training and the adoption of them tools, or the lack of availability of them tools as well. And as we're talking trends, a lot of organizations have now got information workers that are doing a number of jobs and actually are working from a number of areas. So they may be a global organization, they may be a national organization, maybe a retailer that's working across different areas. And the roles are becoming more and more dynamic. Hence, the impact on and the need for collaboration is more and more important. For that organization to move forward. And of course, regulation is increasing. There's more and more regulation that's coming through. And actually, there's a huge worry about violating compliance policies. And actually, how can IT police that, but also how can IT empower the organization's end users to make sure that compliance is within the tools and the capabilities that are provided. And of course, there's a huge growth in terms of the data center globally as well, and actually there's a huge case for rise of the cloud. Office 365 is one of the fastest growing propositions for Microsoft, and predominantly that's down to the fact that no longer our organization having to maintain these vanilla workloads like messaging, like SharePoint, like IM. All of these bits are you don't have to worry about updating, patching, backup, resilience. All of that's worried. It is a capability that's part of the service. So when I think about the Office vision, Microsoft Office 365 vision, and specifically around the productivity cloud, it's really looking at 4 key areas. The enterprise grade cloud, so you are getting a 99.9% uptime. It's financially backed. You get your SLAs. There's very clear transparency in terms of if a service goes down or there's degradation. You talk to a human being at the end of the phone. And they're essential productivity services, anything from, again, IM, messaging, intranet, extranet, email, all of the key business critical productivity services that are there. And actually, for you as an organization, there's a lot of flexibility around what services that you want to leverage. For example, you could say, well, actually, I want to run, only Exchange Online for a newly acquired organization that I've come on board. And actually, I've got an investment in on-premise, so I'll keep it as a hybrid cloud model for now. And in the future, I'll slowly migrate my users there. And actually, there's flexibility in terms of licensing. So what type of capability do you want? What level of capability do you want? And do you want to arm your users with it as well? And of course, it's a familiar and easy environment. So, from an IT perspective, IT used to looking at Exchange, looking at SharePoint. All of these interfaces are aligned to the way that the cloud works as well. And for the end user, of course, it's really about that experience in Outlook, in Word, in Office as a whole. And actually, how can we empower them a lot more to collaborate further? But if there's 3 things that I'd probably ask you to kind of look at in this journey are really about today, Microsoft Productivity Vision embraces multiple devices. So, if you're using a Mac, iPad, Android, all of them devices, you can consume Office 365 as a service. So when I talk about that explosion of devices, there's a lot more capabilities. But also in terms of cloud on your terms, if we take Exchange Online, for example, you've got Exchange on-premise at the moment, and you wanted to move into Exchange Online, the hybrid cloud allows you to kind of move your users at your own pace. So you can decide to say, as I said in that scenario, that if your organization has got that investment, but you've got more users or contractors or a newly acquisition, you can take them users and put them into the cloud, but still manage it all on premise, because actually Exchange on premise and Exchange online have the same DNA, and where the Microsoft roadmap is going is very much around that administration user experience is pretty much the same and like for like as time goes past. But hybrid is absolutely necessary, because when you make that journey into the cloud, it starts off in a very basic hybrid model when you start migrating your data in there, and there's a journey. But the third key message here is really about integrated best-of-breed solutions. So when you invest in messaging, when you invest in voice and video, whether it's on premise or in the cloud, or enterprise social, all of that is seamless, is integrated. So I can start in my Outlook. I've got an email that comes out. I can look at the person who sent me that email. I may have some questions. I may go and start up an IM video, and then start co-authoring a document in terms of screen sharing. So there's so many capabilities that are brought together as part of that experience. When we talk about that Office 365 vision, it's really focused on doing getting the best out of your work, doing your best work. And there are really four key areas, which is the interactive expression, which is really about the Office experience on your device, the touch, the fact that you can ink, the voice element, the fact that your documents, your Office travels with you wherever you are, the multimedia element of it as well in terms of Link Online. So I'm today presenting from using Link Online Office 365 as a service. So I'm presenting my PowerPoint slides, video, audio, and everyone's joining and collaborating from that perspective as well. And the other part is enterprise social. And we've been hearing social a lot over the last 5-6 years. But today's social is really about the fact that people can collaborate, and social is beyond just being micro-blogging or the Facebook type for the enterprise type of solution, but it's really about that collaboration, that IM, audio, video, document sharing, all of them capabilities coming together to give you that real-time collaboration experience as well. And personalized insights, when I talked about persona-led engagements, is you're really thinking, well, if Katie does a certain job in your organization, she uses a certain types of device, she only needs to do certain things using this type of capability, then actually how do we make that easier for Katie? And that personalized insight bit is really around using that big data and making it small, making it a lot more personal to the users. And I'll show you kind of in the demonstration a little bit more about how that works. And actually, because of machine learning, because of these these advances in the cloud, you can start using natural language queries. So, for example, I could say in December, what products sold the most, and actually that can look across your analytics database and is able to tell you actually, cameras sold a lot more and it was this vendor and this is why. But that natural language query bit is starting to come through in Excel and BI to empower more users to leverage the right bit of information going forward as well. And of course, responsible empowerment. This is really about things like data loss prevention. The fact that how can you prevent organization, individuals in the organization, sending information that's breaking that compliance, that governance standard. And actually, from an audit perspective, do you have the right tools to go and audit the mailboxes, across your enterprise, not just email, but SharePoint, IM, messaging, all across that spectrum? How are you able to do that with services like eDiscovery? So talk about that interactive explosion of expression. This is really about getting work done a lot more easier. If you're implementing bring your own device, it just means that you can separate your corporate data from your personal data. And of course, when you're engaging with customers, you've got the right tools. You're able to demonstrate your portfolio. You're able to excite them a lot more going forward as well. And in this mobile first and cloud first world of Microsoft, this is that familiar experience now, whether you're using an iPad, whether you're using an Android device or a Surface, you still have that ability to edit documents, create and collaborate as you would do and expect within the Office environment. And actually that experience, whether it's Word, PowerPoint, Excel, is designed to be anywhere. And when we talk about services like OneDrive, it really brings together that capability for users. And obviously, Office apps on any device is again, a broader element of that as well. So when you look at analytics, when you look at a rich browser experience, and browsers are starting to become king after a long time. If you look at the web app versus the Word app, yes, there are some feature parity differences, but the experience is very similar for the user. So there's been some great advances around that piece as well. But for an organization, for an individual that wants to be connected to their organization, if you take a retailer for example, most retailers are now using technology like Yammer and SharePoint to enable their service agents out on the sales floor with the right information. So it could be a video about a certain product that they show a customer. They can look up specs. They can do that with their own device, but through Office 365 and them services. So there's some really exciting things that are possible today around that. Ink and Touch, we're moving into this paperless world. We are really trying to optimize that experience around that creativity, but bringing together all sorts of information into one place. And actually, the touch element, certainly with the growth of mobile and tablet PCs, there's a huge demand for that as well. When we talk about live and interactive, we are really talking about co-authoring. So, for example, if I'm creating a bit of content, but actually I need input from marketing, I need input from sales, how can the stakeholders get together and start to use these tools in the right way? And with co-authoring, you can see the people, you can see how they're making the changes. Each paragraph is locked to the person in terms of Word that they're editing, and in real time, rather than doing version control and having multiple versions that you're sharing across email, you're doing all of this at once. And actually, in real time, you're able to see a document starting to take form where different stakeholders are editing and kind of changing. And of course, in the world of traditional, data and reporting, dynamic reports have become more and more important. The fact that the types of information that you need most generically, most often, you can use and develop real-time dynamic reports that enable you to get that information very quickly, rather than building reports again and again and having static copies of that information. And actually, because of this BI explosion, we're able to share that information to organizations, whether it's about service, customer, sales, marketing, finance. You're able to inform the organization a lot more clearly as well. So if I take a scenario, for example, I take Sarah here, who works in a telco organization, a retail store, and she recommends telephone type products and phone contracts to customers. So in the day of the life of Sarah, you're really looking at couple of things where technology help us. So she comes in before the store opens in the morning. She reads a few emails. She sees the HR updates. She engages with the manager. She checks the company portal to see if there's any news. She can learn about any new promotions or products that are there. And she can also read the chief marketing officer's blog in terms of what's coming out there in the future. At 9 a.m., the first customer walks in, and the customer's got a query around a certain product, and she hands the customer a device. She looks, she demos a certain feature or capability on the device, and she's able to give them a virtual tour using that device as well. And actually, during a slow period later on at work, she can access a knowledge base. She can look at, from a tablet or a smartphone. again, she's able to kind of watch online training videos. She look at month's promotions, any new product rollouts that are coming as well. She can be informed. She's connected to the rest of the organisation whilst she's working on the front line. And actually, before the store closes, and actually looking at this, she's got quite a long day, Sarah has, she checks online, she checks her calendar, she books out some time off, a holiday, she gets it approved from her manager right away, and she's able to tell her co-workers that she's working that time, and she's able to orchestrate cover as well. So Enterprise Social, again, I'll give a very kind of a brief demo of what Enterprise Social is and actually what we can cover. But it enables you to be to get the right information, to talk to the right people within the organization very quickly. You know, you can see the people card, you can integrate it as part of your intranet experience. You can really bring video, voice, and web conferencing together to really create the right content, you know, make the right decisions faster and quicker, and handle change a lot more faster within the organization. Of course, OneDrive has just recently been announced for business. Is now you know, comes with a terabyte of storage. But that, you know, you can literally share your information. That's your personal files where they're kept. You can collaborate with them files. You can share them with anybody you like. You can keep it, you know, personal files that are only seen by you, and then shared files that you can share internally within your My Site as well. So at this point, I'm going to quickly kind of focus on a demo and take you through Office 365 as a capability. So this really persona that I'm demoing today is really a lady called Katie Jordan, her name is, and I've got to really work hard to convince you guys that I am Katie. But this is really about, Katie starts off the morning looking at the company intranet, and she's able to see the general updates, so in terms of key features on the intranet. She's able to see a company-wide kind of a Yammer news feed in terms of what's going on within the business. And again, that news feed could be specific to Katie. So Katie could work as a retail, could work in finance, so she could choose or could be geared up to what Katie wants to see as part of that intranet experience. And actually, things like, you know, training and communication, marketing communication becomes a lot more important around products, around the business, around the capabilities. And actually, Office 365 recently announced that the media streaming capabilities of Azure is actually now being put into Office 365. So you can actually put video content that you can very easily create, share it, and actually whether the user is on a mobile device or a tablet, they're able to consume and stream and get that information streamed to them. So they don't actually physically download the content because it may contain IP, may contain sensitive information, but it's also a training mechanism as well. So that's some new capabilities, but also Katie here is able to see some of the metrics that she worries about, you know, and again, this could be another persona. It could be Stephen that's only focused on sales in Europe, and Stephen may get a broken down look into that as well. And again, there's a calendar element around key events that are happening specific to Katie's organization. So there's a forecasting monthly pipeline meeting happening on the 20th of January. There's a vendor presentation coming up. And of course, she's able to share some of the documents, get access to some of the documents that have been key within the intranet. And of course, you've got communities, employees, facilities. You can build your intranet and your capabilities as you wish. You know, I mentioned reporting. Reporting is a big area amongst all businesses, and the fact that you can have dynamic reporting capabilities with BI means that you're empowered a lot more. So this is taking a view that, you know, Contoso, which is a fictional company, is a global organization. And actually, you can pretty much click on reports and products and actually get very specific information on there. So I just need to refresh this. You can get dynamic information from the report specifically around your capabilities. The demo gods are looking at me hard today. But this is just loading. So essentially, this is a Excel web app that's put into into a SharePoint site, and that takes dynamic and real-time information from other systems and is able to present a report around global sales. And actually, if you only wanted to focus on, say global computer sales, you're able to get that information very clearly. Or you're only looking at Europe as a market, for example, a certain country in Europe, you're able to be very specific and get that information. And it may be just a specific area that you want to look at, but the whole idea of any organization getting real-time information and meaningful information, this really empowers. And again, with this capabilities, not only you can share the report, but you can download it, you can maybe edit it and review it and personalize it for your team or your department or your area of focus. And this becomes a very powerful area around reporting. And that reporting, of course, could be about customer service, support incidents, could be about products, could be about retail performance, all sorts of things that you can kind of utilize. Could be finance, as I say, as well as operations. But essentially, as you can see, it's an Excel web app which has some data and is presented as in that way as well. But also, if you look at things like Outlook has really moved forward. So, Office 365 is not just about the web app. It's also about your full-fledged desktop experience as well. And the desktop experience has changed, and there's some huge benefits around that as well. So if we look at Katie's inbox, Katie's able to she's got a meeting request from Robin here, and Robin says, actually, we need to review Northwind Traders' proposal progress. Let's schedule a meeting on Friday, and let's meet at 9 a.m. at Starbucks near the campus. And she's put in her address there and says, thanks. And there's a new feature, which is really Office 365 apps within Outlook, which really looks at actually the address that's there. You can start to look at directions, so it points out exactly where the meeting will be, but it goes a step further. Another app is able to say, well, actually, it's 9 to 9:30 on a Friday on this date with Sarah, who's the attendee, and Katie. Would you like to schedule this in your Outlook calendar? So there are some really good advancements that are kind of put in place as part of apps within that. And you can get social apps. For example, you can get, you can look at everyone's contact cards, and Katie may receive an email from someone outside the organization, but because she's connected with them on LinkedIn or Facebook, you can have that social connector experience, and you can bring up information or picture or details about that individual as part of your Outlook experience. But essentially, if Katie has any questions to Robin, she can start an IM message. She can give her a call if she's available. In this case, she's offline. She's able to kind of message her back or contact her. And the great thing is, if she starts off an IM conversation, the IM conversation will open up, and the header of the IM conversation will be the same header of the email subject that's come up. So when Robin sees that subject, she says, well, actually, it's about, Katie's trying to contact me about project updates. It must be about the email that I've sent her as well. So there's a lot more capability now built into Office 365. And of course, these apps aren't limited just to being, on the traditional Office application, but also when you look at a web app, and this is a picture of a web app, it's touch enabled. So if you're using it within a certain device, you can start to utilize this very quickly. But Garrett here has written to Katie, and she said it is requested that she prepares for a meeting for Northwood, and she needs to send an Excel file that he needs. And essentially, you can flag that as an action, and Garrett can see that action in terms of is it being addressed, is it not? And that action could be part of a milestone of activities in SharePoint, where you start off with a proposal, then you start off with a spreadsheet, then it's a bunch of milestones, and Garrett could see different stakeholders as they complete their tasks, where the end of the proposal is coming to. So there are so many capabilities. Equally, you can integrate this in an app that you can write for your ERP system or CRM system, where you can complete forms, where you can do all sorts of things. So the possibilities around developing an application within this Outlook environment are also strong as well. But a couple of other features within this world is the fact that there are groups. So the whole social element of groups. So Katie's part of a running club. She could be part of an innovation group or whatever. But she's able to engage and kind of connect with individuals very quickly within one interface, rather than going out. From that experience, so she rather than going into different screens, she's able to do it all in one screen as well. So if I go back to that environment again, in the inbox, when Katie writes an email, she's able to, again, it's created inline. So if she's writing to Robin, Robin shows up as part of the global address list, and is able to get more information throughout the course of the day. And of course, as you experience and as you edit documents, what's changed now in the Office 365 world, if I go back to sites here, is when you log into your control panel, you're able to get this now tiles view, which is really looking at what 365, which means that actually, do you want to start a Word document? What is it that you want to do? So an example of that will be here. So it may be starting off in Outlook, maybe looking at calendar, maybe looking at people or IMing someone, for example, newsfeed, which is really a My Site, looking at OneDrive for business. And what I'll do is I'll look at OneDrive Business as a final part of my demo, as a starting point. But essentially, this means that the user is able to get a lot more experience. You may have other applications that are, or sites or capabilities that you want the user to focus on. And actually, there is a possibility of editing these with additional tiles that are user-centric to that end user as well. So, just loading up OneDrive. So OneDrive for Business is great. So again, I've got my private information stored away, which nobody in the organization apart from myself can see, and I've got shared with everyone else folder as well. As soon as I click on this, I'm able to look at a preview of the documents. How many times do you have to actually go in and open a document and you think, well, that's not the right document, and you go back. So you're able to actually do some real-time reviewing in the document as well. So you have to look at pictures, you're able to go and scroll down. But also you can see that actually you've shared this document with a bunch of people, and you can also share this as a link. So instead of sending bulky files down your connectivity and using up your bandwidth, you're really using SharePoint appropriately. Now I can follow this document. I can also share this document and pretty much say, well, actually, I want to share this document with Robin, who's going to have a capability, who can edit or can only view this document. I'll write a personal message, and she will require a sign-in. Or I can create a link, view-only link, or an edit link if I'm sharing externally within my organization. And of course, I can view all the folks that are here as well. So in this scenario, I'm actually going to go and edit this Word app. Just bear with me. I'm literally just going to open up in Word app, actually. So I'm going to click Edit on Browser. What it's done now is it's actually pulled together a full-blown wrong button there, a full-blown Word app Word app within a web app essentially. As you can see, the ribbons are limited in comparison to, but the actual desktop app. But you have still a lot of capabilities here. You can save, you can print, you can download, you can share, and also you can kind of make changes, edit, add pictures, all sorts of wonderful stuff. That's equally true in Excel, PowerPoint, all the other apps as well. And of course, when you're co-authoring this, Katie's here at the top. She can also share this document with Robin, for example. In this scenario, Robin can join and start editing the document. I can see in real time when Robin will be editing that document as well. And equally, I may do that with 20 people. But the whole idea of creating and kind of sharing a document with one person really enables the business a lot more as well. So just going to switch back to my presentation. So what I'd like to do at this stage is really run through very briefly around the slides and capabilities around licensing. Office 365 is very broad. There's lots of solutions in licensing. So you can look at Office 365 and Open, for non-for-profit, for retail, for standalone cows. Look at certain offers around that as well. Look at software assurance. The advice that I give to you is really to speak to Comparex, to speak to your account managers, reach out to them around understanding licensing in detail. But in a very basic perspective, there are three key options around organizations. So there's a plan for small organizations, small medium businesses. There's a mid-sized business plan which goes up from 11 to 250 users, and there's an enterprise plan which goes up to 250 users. These prices are kind of portal prices, so they're not a volume licensing pricing. Of course, there's a consumer side on that as well. But essentially, it's a per user license. It's a subscription model. There's a lower cost of entry versus a perpetual one, and it's very predictable kind of a operational cost that you can know in terms of what that service is, and it's an always up-to-date service that you get. Again, the two types of workers tend to be a kiosk worker or enterprise worker when we look at the enterprise suite, and they bring different capabilities. But the three suites that you need to kind of think about here are really the E1 suite, which gives you everything but with web apps. E3 suite gives you all the desktop applications, and E4 suite gives you the enterprise voice capabilities when it comes to running a PBX-based system like Link on-premise in line with Office 365. So I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone on the call and wanted to really open up the conversation more so around any questions. Of course, I've got James and the team that are available. So if you do have any questions, please do ask, and we're able to support you going forward as well. So I'm just going to make sure that everyone's unmuted and is able to kind of ask questions here as well. So whilst everyone is thinking about that, I'll ask a question that is quite common usually from customers, is around that migration piece. James, I'll put it to you really. What would you suggest to a customer when it comes to looking at Office 365 around developing a migration plan? So specifically around email and SharePoint.
So for me, I guess identity is one of the first things I would look at during a migration. So moving to the cloud, there's always going to be a challenge with users logging into systems. So the first thing I would do with any migration is consider the infrastructure. We're going to use the likes of the directory synchronization tool to just synchronize our on-prem Active Directory to Office 365. So we have users available in Office 365, and maybe we also synchronize their password so that they've got ease of access and they can just remember one username and password. Or are we going to increase our capabilities and maybe look at ADFS so we can then have single sign-on? I think before even thinking around migrations, I think identity for me is one of the strong points.
Thank you, James. And often when we do these webinars, we have a lot of questions from customers, and I just want to kind of highlight some of the resources that are available to you. We're absolutely happy to run something like this, but more specific to your organization. So myself, James, and our architects can have that conversation with you remotely or on, in your offices. We also run events with Comparix on a monthly or quarterly basis, so do ask your account managers. But simply, when you do have questions around migration, or you have a technical barrier, or you want to know a little bit more, you may just want to understand exactly what Office 365 looks like for a certain workload and how that would work. Absolutely reach out to your Comparix account manager, who not only will be able to give you a clear idea of licensing, the costs, but also has a relationship with Microsoft. So if you did want Microsoft into that engagement, you can also hear it straight from the vendor, but is also able to bring in the experts like Clear People to support you in that in some of the queries that you have. So, of course, we've got the IM window, so if you can't talk on the phone for some reason, I'm happy for you to kind of take some questions on IM as well. Okay, so again, my word of advice on the licensing, it can appear a little bit more overwhelming. However, when you're looking at it specifically to your own market segment, your industry, your own size, Comparix and your account managers can kind of really simplify that in terms of what are the clear options that are available to you as well. So with that in mind, I want to thank everyone for attending. Of course, if you do have any questions, you can reach out to myself, which is gsing at Clear People, main window, or go back to your Comparix account manager, who can guide you through the right resource as well. I hope today's been helpful, and I wish you a good lunch and afternoon as well. Thanks once again.